everyone, it's Mambo, and welcome back to episode 6 of my Java game tutorial series, and let's just load up a project real fast. Today, we're going to be working on ImageList. So the idea here is that you'll be able to put multiple images into a list, and then be able to draw it multiple times from one line. So, between episodes, I added in a new sprite sheet, which is just a 4x4 sprite sheet of colors. And I went ahead into image loader and I dropped all of those colors in here, and I added the thing here, and then in the image ID I added all the IDs for it. So all you have to do is just color and then what color it is, and then I just put a number after it, and then light gray, dark gray, there's light and dark of them all. So that's how that's what I did with the episodes. I also made a images folder for the image ID and image loader. That's actually where we're going to add a new class, which is going to be called ImageList. And we are going to, in here, the first thing we're going to do is create some private lists, and this is going to be integer, and we're going to call this XS, standing for multiple X's, and I'm going to copy this, and we're going to have YS for the Y's, and we'll have levels. I'll explain what these are in a second. And we'll have rotations, and then we'll have scales, but this one will actually be a float, and then this one will be a image ID. We'll just call this IDs or types. IDs. Yeah, I think so. So these are all 6 of the lists, and the XS and YS are going to store the X and Y position of the image we want to add into a list. The level is basically what level it's going to be drawn at. So if you want to draw it in front or behind, a different level of thing. So if we wanted it to be always drawn first and in the back, we would put it at 0. If we wanted it higher up, we could put it at like level 10, and if that was the highest level, then that would be the last drawn one. And then rotation is just what rotation it will be drawn at, and scale would just be how big or small it is, and then IDs is just which image you want to draw. Now, specifically, they're all pluralized because they're lists, and we'll have multiple of them. And whenever you want to create a new list, so just make a constructor here. I'm going to select none. You're just going to create the access, in this case, is going to equal new array list. Like so. And that's all you're going to do for all of these. So every time, and note that these are not static because they are instance dependent, meaning that every time you create a new image list, you're going to, and then we have levels, we have rotations, we have scales, and then we have IDs. Every time you create a new image list, every time you create a new instance of the image list class, you'll create a new set of these. And then what you can call is add, so public void add image. And then here we're going to have some parameters. So we are going to have the int x, int y, and then we're going to have image ID, we'll call this ID, and then we'll have, and I'd like to have it, let's say rotation. So int rotation, and then we'll have float scale. Then we'll have int level. So ID, rotation, scale, level, like so. And then what we're gonna do is pretty simple. We'll go xs.add x, and then we'll do ys.add y, and we'll do ids.add id, and we'll go rotations.add rotation, scales.add scale, and then levels.add levels. And what this is going to do is going to add, every time you want to add an image, it's going to add it to the list, each list. And then this is where the meat of it is, and before we do this, I'm actually going to create a public static void, and we'll call this fill list. And fill list is just going to accept a I think that's just all fill list needs, is just that, and that's just going to be able to have the lists, like be able to fill them if we want to fill them from here just for testing purposes. But the next one we're going to create is public void, and this one's going to be called draw list. And this is where it gets interesting, and we'll have another set of these. So actually, I'm just going to copy this over right here and paste it in here, except that we can get rid of levels because for now I don't need that. And float scale rotation, and we don't need the ID either. So the X, Y rotation scale, that's all we need for that. And then here, the first thing we're going to do is just have a couple things. First of all, we're going to, last one. Graphics, not graphics, just graphics G, like so. So the first thing I want to do is just do graphics 2D equals G, and we need to cast that. Why aren't you working? Okay, whatever. I can do it by hand. Cast graphics 2D to G, like so. And why are you erroring? Oh, I need to name it G2D. We'll call it G2D, like so. So that is the graphics. We also need int current level, and that will equal 0. And we need int current image, and then we want, and that will just stay blank for now. I'll go int, let's just say images drawn, like so, and that'll equal 0. And I'm actually going to get rid of this for now, current image. That will be initialized somewhere else. Now, just to refer to this is what we're going to draw. I'll explain it as we draw it, but we'll do a while loop. Now, while images drawn is less than the, in this case, I'll just use a xs dot size. All right. And now, basically, what this means is that this is going to loop until images drawn is, and it says right now, oh, why, what's up here? Oh, images drawn, capital D there. Images drawn, like so. There, that's better. Okay, so image is drawn. Every time it draws, I'm going to draw image. Every time I draw an image, I need to increment image drawn by 1. So this will loop until it's done. So in here, we're going to have a for loop, and this is going to loop through, if I go check back, no, an if statement. No, for loop, and that's going to be just like levels dot size in this case. So int I is equal to 0, and then I is less than, I is equal to levels dot size. I think this is not actually what I want, but okay, and then I plus plus, and I think it's actually just not equal to, but is less than or equal to, if I correct. Yeah, no, just less than equal. Okay, and then the if statement. So the if statement now is going to do this, and it's going to be if current level is equal to levels dot get I. All right, so whatever current we're on, and now I looks like I need to, yeah, no, inside the if. Now in here, we're going to get some things going. So first of all, we need a buffered image, and nope, not buffered, buffered image, and we'll call this image, and we'll call it current image. Current image is equal to image loader dot image loaded images dot get dot and then IDs dot get I. Now, what this is, I'll explain this after I type it out here, and then we'll do find transform non-rotated G2D is equal to G2D dot get transform, and then let's see, yes, and then what now we have to do is do G2D dot translate, and the x and y is going to be xs dot get I, and then the y is going to be ys dot get y. And by the way, the get I, basically this is just, the get I is referring to this, whichever one we're on. So the for loop is going to loop through, and if it's going to loop through them all, and it's only going to execute this code if the level of that specific image, which would be up here, one of these, and wait, whatever, is going to, if it's equal to the current level that's drawing, then it will, and this is the current level that is being drawn. So it's kind of confusing. I'll explain it after, and then we'll also do G2D.rotate, and then we'll get rid of this. I'm just going to do the singular one, and this is going to be math.toRadians, and then it will be rotations.get I. Now, what I actually have to do here is, for this one, I have to add xs, or x, For this one, I have to add X, and I have to add Y. And for this one, I have to add, yes, I have to add, no, I have to add rotation. Basically, if I want to rotate it while I'm drawing it, whatever it was already rotated, that's how I can do that. And let me just make sure I'm doing that right. Yes, that's all I did there. Okay, and then this is the big clumpy section, which is the draw. So here we're going to now draw. So the G dot draw, G2D dot draw image, and then here this is going to be current image, and I'm gonna put null at the end, and then we're gonna have a lot of stuff. 2 more, and I think, yeah, we're just gonna go along as we go. So the current image, we're going to now write in here. We have to cast to int, and then we have to, let's put brackets, then we have to go negative, the negative, those are negative brackets, so negative, and then we have to go, that would be image drawn, no, sorry, current image dot get, how does this work? Dot get width, dot get width times, gotta make sure I'm doing this right, get width times, and then another set of brackets, bear with me here, times scale dot get I plus scale. So scales dot get I plus scale, and then we have to go over 2 divided by 2, and that's gonna error because, all right, now period, next line, and I'm actually going to do a next line here as well. All right, so very confusing, but now we can copy this because we've already done one. So now we can copy and paste, and now all you have to do here is just change this from get width to get height, which makes that easy, if I'm doing that correctly. Yes, and then the next one, we do it again twice, and we did not copy that correctly. Bear with me here. I'll explain this after. And the only difference with this one is that we remove the negative, and we will also remove a, oh, geez. Okay, we also remove a, okay, actually, I'm just going to put that back, remove this here. Like so, and then we go over here and we remove this. And the last but not least over here, null. Alright. The question is, and then this is get width. Now, is that all we need to do here? Yes, it should be get height width height. Okay. Now I can just get the spacing right, because why not, right? Have it nice and perfect. There we are. That is nice. All right. I think I tabbed that up just to make it all look nice. You don't have to do this. This is technically could be on one line, but it would look really long and confusing. Now, after that, and let's bop that back to there. After that, that was a lot. All we have to do is just g2d dot set transform non-rotated g2d, and then g2d dot translate 0, 0. If I'm correct on that, and then images drawn plus plus. Plus plus. And then we still have a few more current after the 2. So right here, current level plus plus. All right, now that is great. We have got, I'll leave that up just in case. Okay, so that is, and we can rename current image. There. All right, cool. Now, that is a lot of stuff to comprehend. So I'm gonna quickly go over it. Let's just make sure this works. Actually, no, I'll go over it now. So, first thing we're doing is we're passing the X, Y, rotation, and scale, and the graphics G. So the X and Y is where we want this to be positioned. And then the rotation and float scale is the rotation is just what rotation we want the whole thing to be rotated, and the scale is what scale we want it from what it already is looking like before we've drawn it. We're starting by just making a GTD and setting it equal to our graphics. So now we have a graphics 2D object. We're setting current level and current level, which is the level that we would be currently currently wanting to draw images on. So if we wanted to draw the 0, it would only draw the idea here that it would go through and draw all of the images that have been added to the lists that only have the idea of 0 for the levels. So only the ones that have 0 set to this. And if there's none, it would move on. So, and then images drawn is just how many images. So after this whole process, which is one image drawn, it will iterate it, and then when it'll finish, it will loop through the whole one cycle. So starting off, while loop right here, it's going to check to see if the current level, sorry, not current level, images drawn is if this ever exceeds or is equal to. Because if it's equal to, then it knows it's already drawn that, and if it was equal to, if it was greater than or equal or less than or equal to, then it would allow one more extra, which is not really that great, so it's just less than. And then here we have a for loop, which is basically just going to loop through the whole list, the whole list of one type, right? Doesn't really matter which type, and it's going to have an I for that. Because they're all, whichever I will count for being able to access whichever iteration we're on for all of them, because they're all gonna be added at the same time, and they're all going to have, oh hey, look at that, Fortnite. They're all gonna have the same all of them are gonna be added at the same time, so they're all gonna have the same index index for that. So they're also all gonna be the same size. So it's gonna loop through the first. It's gonna check to see. So after it's looped, so it's going through. It's gonna check to see if the current one it's on, which would be the first iteration, if the level is equal to current level, which in this case is 0. So if the level that was passed in when you added it was equal to 0, then it would draw it. If it's not, it would skip it, and it would go through again and do that until it finds one with it. If it didn't, if none of them had 0, then it would go through, loop through the whole thing, and then it would go current level, and it would plus plus. So now it would go through and it would do it again and look and draw the ones that have 1 now. And it'll do that until images drawn equals that, because after that it would finish that, go, and it would start the while loop again. But since this current level will eventually reach the maximum once it's gone through and drawn all the images, it will stop. So now let's get into this section right here, which is I guess, the meat of it. So it's starting by making a buffered image called current image, which is just the current image that we are going to draw. So in this case, image loader.loaded images.get IDs.get ID. So in this case, we're just referencing from that list of images, and we're using the current identification of what image we want to get this is just set equal to the current image that we want to draw. Now we're making it a fine transform, which I don't really know why it's called that, but basically just this line right here is creating it's got basically just storing the non-rotated graphics 2D. Okay? And we're just setting it equal to g2d.getTransform, which is, I guess, the affine transform. Well, it kind of makes sense, kind of. Anyway, so now we're gonna translate, and that basically just means if you were to draw a image on the screen at 0, 0, it would draw it at 0, 0 in the top corner, right? But in this case, wherever we set the translate to, that's where the 0, 0 is. So so what we're doing here is we're setting that translate to where we want to draw the image, and then we're drawing the image at 0, 0. Kind of. There's a little bit different. So translate xs.get I, which is just getting the current x position of the iteration, and then we're adding x onto it because we know that if we want to draw this whole thing off by 50 pixels to the left, then we just have to all of the ones being drawn has to be drawn 50 pixels to the left. Same with the y, if we added that in. So that's why you just add this x here, because that just allows us to do an extra little manipulation after when we're drawing it. So we do that same thing for the y, and then we do g2.rotate. Now rotate is basically just going to rotate the whole thing from the 0 point. So that's why we have to draw the image in the set at 0, 0. If we don't, then it's going to be rotated around the 0 point and not around the center of the actual image. So if we want it to be rotated around the center of the image, we have to draw the image to have the center of the image at 0, 0. So in this case, we're just math.toRadians, because the rotate uses radians, not degrees, and we'll be inputting degrees because it's easier. And in here, we're just going to do rotations.getI, which is the current rotation that we want, and then plus rotation. Makes sense. g2.drawImage. So the first is the current image, which is the image to be drawn. The second one, and I'm going to comment this right here, and we're just going to go image to be drawn, and then we'll go x, oops, that's not what I wanted, x, y, width, and then height. Why is that erroring? HEI. Okay, height. So the first one is x, so where we're drawing the image, which is basically getting the negative. Okay, I'll talk about why it's negative a little bit. Well, first of all, we're casting it to an integer because right now it is a float. We're getting the current image, right? Width. The current image's width, which in this case is 64, because all of our images right now are 64, but if some of them were different, just to make sure that we're getting the width. And then we're timesing it by, and ignore these spaces here, I'm just like to have that nice and neatly lined up, and then we're timesing it by scales.getI. So if its scale was 1.5, then we're going to times it by 1.5, so that the x would be 1.5, and then it's like 1.5 of the width, and then we're adding the scale, and then we're dividing that whole thing by 2, and it's going to be negative. The reason why it's divided by 2 and negative is because first of all, we want this very center. So if we get the half and half of the x and y, and we make it negative, it's going to push the image being up. So half of it's going to be drawn on the positive part, and half will be drawn on the negative. I'll explain. It will probably make a bit more sense when we finally get an image on the screen. And then we do the same thing for the y, but we just use get height. And everything else stays the same. And then the width and height are just cast by int. Current image.getWidth is the same thing, except that it's not being divided by 2, because in this case we're setting the width and height, and we're setting it, but we're not doing anything yet. So we're getting the width and we're getting the height, and then we're timesing it by timesing it by the width and the I guess percentage. So if 1 would be 100% of it, 2 would be 200%, so both the width and height would be 2 times. And then observable not, which you just set that equal to all the time. And then g2.transform non-rotated, and then translate 0, 0. And that's just setting the g2d back to its standard form. I don't think you actually need to do this. You might need, actually I think you do, because the g2d is being set up here and not in here. If it was being cast in here, then it would be fine. And then, so that's a lot of information to capture. So right now we're just going to create a image list. We'll call this test list, and then we'll not initiate in here. We'll initiate it, and this will actually be a public static. And in here we're just going to go image test image test list equals new image list, and then we'll go test list dot add image. Now this is where it gets interesting. So we'll add one at 500. The ID is going to be image ID dot, and then we'll do black, and then the rotation is going to be 45. The scale is going to be the scale is going to be 1f, and then the last one's going to be 0. So on the last scale, and then we're going to copy this and paste it. And this, in this case, were them all going to be rotated. Yeah, they'll all just be rotated 45, except it's going to go 1, 2, and then 3. And the third one is going to be 0, 1, and 2. Alright? And then we'll just change the colors from black to dark gray, and then to light gray. Like so. And then we'll change, then that will be good. Yeah, so now we have 3 images in a list, and all we have to do now is just go back to image loader. No, not image loader, sorry. Graphics handler, and this is not where we would usually do it. We'll just go image list dot fill list, and then we're going to go down here and do test list. We have to go image list dot test list dot draw list. Now here we're just going to do, I'm going to say 0, 0. Rotation is going to be 0, scale is going to be 0, and G is going to be G. So now if we run it, if everything works perfectly, we should get exactly what I wanted. So right here is 3 things. By the way, the black in the center is the original sized thing. Now if we close this, I'm going to go back to image list, and I'm going to pretty easily take this. Actually, I'm going to go back to image list, and I'm going to unrotate it. The rotation is going to be 0. Alright, and what we're going to do is just going to go back to graphics handler and simply go here and do it again, but in this case we're going to have a rotation of 45. So they're all going to be rotate 45, and then y 500, and, or no, sorry, y is going to stay 0, x is going to go 500. So now you'll see we have a non-rotated one and a rotated one. So you can see the center one is its an original form. The dark gray one is twice the size, and the light gray one's 3 times the size. So if that makes sense to you guys, basically now I'll explain to you what the rotation's doing. We're drawing the image instead of here, which is where the 0, 0 is when we draw it. It's going to be drawn here. Back up. It's really confusing. If none of that made sense to you guys, just comment in the description below, and I will hopefully try to get back to you guys with a better description. But I think I did explain it pretty well. So basically that's how that's gonna work. You have a lot of so it's actually not even that much code. It's just a little portion, but it's just really it's kind of hard thing to get your head around. So and eventually we'll make this. But in the next episode, I'm gonna work on like actually getting the main menu. When you start up the program, it's gonna show you the main menu, and then you'll be able to click on one, and it'll change it to the next. Change it to a to like the play level select or anything. But anyway, hope you guys all enjoyed this episode of my Java game tutorial series, and I'll see you guys all later.